Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Good afternoon, everyone. I would like to begin by thanking the organizers for inviting me and putting up this magnificent Congress. I would like to thank Mr. ASSAM in particular, who has put in a lot of hard work and effort to ensure today's event is a success. My name is Dr. Sidra Tariq Jamil, and I am from Pakistan. I'll be speaking today on why the Chinese domestic governance and internal security matter in the practice of China's global economic diplomacy and its expansive foreign policy. Let me begin my presentation by saying that one of the most pressing concerns of the 21st century is whether China's expanding economy and global interconnectedness translate into stronger geopolitical impact. Policymakers, academics, businesses, and a host of other individuals all around the world, including in China, await a credible response with trepidation. To be sure, there is a strong dispute in opinions regarding the long-term effects of China's growing global influence, while China's authorities insist that their country is still dedicated to the goal of peaceful development. Many other countries, especially in the regional neighborhood, regard China as an assertive actor looking to use its size and prosperity to increase its geostrategic influence. In the main, Chinese authorities have long worked to reassure their neighbors, the United States, and their own public that the country's principal foreign policy goals remain in the service of domestic economic development by making it an utmost priority on a constant basis. In fact, since 2013, high-profile and proactive economic initiatives under the direction of Chinese President Xi Jinping have been promoted in the country's expansive foreign policy with a view to promote global and regional prosperity and peace. But this peaceful development narrative contrasts sharply with the geo-economic theory favored by public intellectuals outside of China who view the country as a mercantilist power, whereby the power center in Beijing have instituted authoritarian state controls underpinned by the communist ideology that manipulate economic institutions to enhance the country's national interests. In an attempt to reflect the reality of China's changing role in the world, this research makes the case that despite China's overwhelming economic influence and interconnectedness with the rest of the world, it is unlikely that the liberalization or democratization of the country's domestic governance and internal security apparatus will materialize. The time is too ripe to encourage more discourse on the politico-economic narrative of China's increasing global role that also takes into account the cultural dimension that is more Asian Chinese oriented. It is also worthwhile to consider institutional norms and historical analysis to interpret and reflect on contemporary Chinese internationalism. So let me proceed to discuss conflicting opinions on the relationship between China's politics and the economy. Over the past several decades, China's economic development strategy and worldwide influence have undergone significant changes. Upon gaining admission into the World Trade Organization in 2001, China started to play a more significant, distinctive, and prominent role in the global economy as it grew to become the world's biggest trading country and contributes to the flow of international and outbound foreign direct investment. While China's economy boomed, its domestic governance of being led by a single party politically through communism stood unchanged. For the Chinese political elites, a one party communist leadership can coexist or go hand in hand with a global economy. Hence, the dictum that China's ideology should be described as socialism with Chinese characteristics. The link between China's desire of wealth and its pursuit of influence on the international scene is a source of escalating dispute and controversy. Uncertainty still exists regarding whether and how the country's expanding global economic linkages have increased its leverage or strength, or even generated new interdependence. Seeking to refute this erroneous narrative of China wants to rule the world, the Chinese has begun to practice economic diplomacy in its foreign policy, particularly as China advances high-profile projects like the Belt and Road Initiative and the Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank. It would be remiss not to mention the intricate connection between the political and economic impact of China and its foreign policy, that how development can overlap with security challenges via the prism of economic diplomacy. With regard to the perception of China playing the role of a good international citizen, Chinese President Xi Jinping considers the virus curves a good thing. His zero tolerance policy for COVID has come to represent his efforts to bolster his power over China and country's Communist Party, whereas the majority of countries have accepted the need to live with COVID. Thus, moving from looking at it as a pandemic to embrace it as an endemic, she has insisted on harsh measures meant to eradicate the virus. Hence, China is yet to really open up its borders to the world. President Xi's strategy has, however, stifled growth in the second largest economy in the world, which was already battling a debt-ridden real estate market and rising youth unemployment. But Xi has struck to his guns, calling zero COVID China's most economic and effective course of action, and has persisted with policies that have increased the state's hold over the 1.4 billion citizens of the country. China's role as a good international citizen was necessary to preserve its national interest, as COVID had besmirched its image and reputation in the eyes of countries around the world. For instance, China provided to countries in the developing world a whole host of supplies, including masks, vaccines, in what became known as China practicing mass diplomacy and vaccine diplomacy in its foreign policy. To conclude, China will presumably continue to prioritize economic development in both its domestic and foreign policies, but progress will continue to be met with obstacles of external, social, and political influences, even as China continues to practice a more global economic diplomacy in its expansive foreign policy. Its domestic governance matters, as the CCP wants to preserve its communist-leaning decision-making mechanism. With President Xi removing term limits, stuffing the Politburo with his loyalists, and continues with efforts to crack down on corruption. The communist socialist politico-economic narrative will persist. That is, China will stick to being politically communist, but economically socialist in the 21st century. By having a strong core at the heart of its leadership, China is also able to preserve its internal security by cracking down or on extremist, terrorist, or separatist groups. This, in turn, is vital for the country to effectively conduct its economic diplomacy, which engenders domestic benefits to the Chinese people. Going forward on the intellectual front, it is imperative to look for fresh, innovative approaches to better comprehend China's political, economic role in the world, as understanding China is driven by an intermestic nexus between the domestic and international narrative. As the epicenter of influence continues to shift from the West to China to Asia, China being the most prominent, it is incumbent on all of us, Chinese watchers, to look beyond Western liberal narratives to make sense of China. We must all take the time to comprehend China, as understanding the country is the biggest and most important task facing all of us in the 21st century. Before I end, as I am from Pakistan, I would like to say how much we value and appreciate our long standing friendship with Turkey. May this close bilateral friendship between Turkey and Pakistan continue to strengthen and flourish, as it certainly benefits the people of both countries. Thank you very much for listening and have a blessed day. Thank you.
Thank you very